everyone. My name is Noah Kalaw. I'm the chief editor here at Evident. And with me, I'm joined by Arnold Kang, our resident Evident digital treatment planning specialist. Arnold, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Arnold. As per Noah, I work at Evident as a case planning specialist to help dentists only to implement their practice digitized so much better so they can provide the best service to their patients.
And Arnold has tons of experience helping a lot of clinicians turn same-day all-on-X's from a concept into a reality. So I guess to provide context, nowadays, patients are more educated about dentistry than ever, and they want the restorations faster and faster so they can get on with their lives. So today, we're planning on going through an all-on-X workflow from start to finish, assuming you've already presented the case and the patient is accepted, and you really just have to upload the scan, fabricate, and get going. I think another thing worth mentioning is obviously if you're a clinic with a massive in-house lab, you can easily turn around same-day all-on-X cases because you have a technician and a mill and all of that. But if you don't have that set of capabilities or resources, you can still achieve similar results by calibrating with us here at Evident. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the webinar. And Arnold, let's get into talking about some all-on-X workflows.
Yeah, so today I just wanted to talk about like two different workflows, even though we have so many types of topics that we can cover up from intraoral scanning to 3D printer. However, today I just want to focus on those digital workflows with the different types of treatment plan. Yeah, so the workflows based on your treatment plans, the workflow you use is primarily determined by your patient's dental situation and conditions, right? So the first option and the ideal situation is the immediate loading. So the immediate loading is perfect in cases where you have a lot of experience and are confident that your patient case will turn out great without being staged, right? And also you're able to place implants as planned and the patient's SUQ number, which is good enough to insert temporary bridge, and so patient can go home with the teeth in a day or the next day. So at Evident, we design your full arch cases and get them back to you within the hour. So we work with every implant library on the market, such as MUA, direct to MUA, rosin screws, parabol screws, and so on. So there are two general problems. So cases when you have unsure of scan accuracy.
Yeah, I think we actually have a really good slide about this. If the marketing team doesn't mind pulling up slide number 6 and the PowerPoint we have, it always helps to visualize this stuff. So to add context, when you're unsure of scan accuracy, that primarily happens when you're not using additive technologies like photogrammetry. And you may have some reservations about the accuracy of your scan. So if you look at the image on the top, you can see that photogrammetry is really like a holistic snapshot of all the implant placements. So it's completely accurate. If you're using that, you can have absolute confidence. An intraoral scan, on the other hand, if you think of it more like a panoramic photo. So the scanner is taking thousands of little pictures of arch and still together in real time. Because of that, there's a very, very small room for error and inaccuracy and misfit, but there is a small room for misfit nonetheless. So that's just something you have to consider. Now, I want to go ahead and say that I don't want people to think that that means that the standard putty and tray impressions are better. Intraoral scanning is still far superior than a standard impression. It's just important to understand the limitations of any technology you adopt in your clinic. And if you have any questions, I would highly recommend reaching out to a member of the team here at Evident, and we'll do our best to answer them or connect with someone who can.
Yeah, so yeah, it's true. So all the experienced clinicians who know their way around on iOS very well will necessarily have these issues as well.
Yeah, I think like everything in dentistry, it kind of boils down to experience, right? How experienced you are and how comfortable you are doing anything. Arnold, it actually looks like we do have a question.
Right.
An anonymous attendee is asking, when should a clinic use photogrammetry versus intraoral scans? And what type of workflows do each of them work with?
Yeah, so speaking of photogrammetry, so it gives you the best 100% accurate implant position, right? So it's capturing just one shot. So like you have no doubt that of misfit. However, it's costly, right? And as long as you don't have any like big amount of volume daily, then you might be scared of getting this photogrammetry system. So in that case, we can utilize iOS very well because I have dentist who does same day with us, and then he just use intraoral scanner, and like the fit accuracy is perfect because it comes from the experience. So like just same as like taking impression, right? So if you take good impressions, then you have no problem with those margin open when the lab fabricates for you. But however, like if you just take a like poor impression and send to lab, and then even though they do a good job, you'll have the open crown margins, right? So it really depends, and then like it really depends on like your experience and the recipes. So yeah, so it comes from like your own perspective.
Yeah, I think one thing that you'll notice it being a common trend throughout this webinar is really that there is no, as much as I hate to say it, there is no silver bullet. There's no one solution fits all. Um, all of these workflows are going to be entirely dependent on, your skill as a clinician, your staff skill, the resources you have, as well as patient conditions, which is completely outside of your control.
Mhm. Yep. Okay, so if you're concerned with this scan accuracy, so there are two types of way you can prepare, right? So same as before, you can just request for all for bridge as planned, but since because of that accuracy, you can have those parallel jig bridge design as well with the bigger access holes. If you could go to the next slide. So like we place the implant based on the fully guided. Still, like there are a lot of discrepancies, micromillimeters. So if the bridge cannot see it from the scan file, then patient cannot go home with a tooth, right? In that case, we can use this polar jig. So it's combination of both analog and digital. You can just consider it as a denture conversions, right, to implant. So we have this design back as a backup. So if the bridge doesn't fit, then you can use this. So you can just engage these tie bases and then pick up with this bigger access holes and then cut all those shoulders of the hard palatals. Then patient can have this temporary bridge.
Nice.
Yeah. So the other problem in this case where we have patient has been staged. So if that's the case, then yeah, we cannot do the palatal jig. So it means no immediate loading for on the day of surgery, which means we have to use the immediate denture so patient can go home with something, right? So if you can go to the next slide. So request immediate denture design when you have diagnosed the case on the day of surgery, and we will do turnout as soon as possible. And alternatively, you can also request the denture design in the preliminary appointment instead of the day of surgery. So you can have the denture ready from the beginning on the day of surgery, which makes so much more faster turnaround time for you.
Yeah. So just to reiterate some key points here, communication with your digital treatment planning expert is really important. I mean, all on X cases are very complex. And I know a lot of clinicians get pretty anxious going into it. So you want to make sure you're communicating any concerns. When you do want immediate turnaround time, please let your digital treatment planning expert know, so we can make sure everything is set up so things run smoothly on the day your patient gets there. Another thing is there are also a lot of alignment issues for edentulous cases. Arnold, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about your experience with alignment issues and what you can do for accurate alignment?
Yeah, so after completing many cases with a lot of dentists, say for same day all on X, I realized that the major issue we face is to have the alignment issues, which is up like most of the time on the same day, right? So for example, for upper, we have good reference points such as hard palatals as a like landmark to superimpose it for the bite alignment, right? However, for lower, it's just hiccup. Unlike upper landmarks with hard palatals, lower has the big limitations on providing enough landmarks. So in this case, we can use bone screws, right? So if we can go to next slide. So bone screw, you can easily place it into the bone to the like retromolar side. And let me just briefly share the workflow for you here. So you can take some pre-op pictures with facial scanner or just an iPhone and just numb the patient up. Put the bone screw on the center of the palate. I'm speaking of the upper case for now. And then also for lower, you can use the bone screw on each retromolar pad on the lower. So the next stage is take a pre-op scan that includes getting all the bone screws in the scan. Then you can send this data to designers so they can get a good idea of what the restoration is going to look like and maybe even make a pre-op restoration, right? So and then extract the teeth and place implants and put the MUS screws in. So I'm just talking about like when this is where we could debate a little depending on what types of technology you have. So I'm giving you this workflow under the assumption that you don't have the photogrammetry such as ICAM40 or PIC imaging system, right? So once the MUS are placed on the implants, then you would place a scan body that sits on top of the MUA, right? And then take a scan of the scan bodies and make sure you include those bone screws again. So like, it means like we previously placed the bone screws and then we don't take it out, right? So it stays the same as you scan the scan bodies, right? Then, yeah, because this is how the designer will relate the original pre-op data with teeth stood into this new data with the teeth extracted. So they can have like tripod point to superimpose it to the correct bite record, and then we can have no issue with the bite problem when designing and when fabricating those big arch.
And Arnold, we have a couple more questions coming through. Another anonymous attendee is asking, do you recommend 3D printing temps and palatal jigs?
Of course, in this market, we have long-term provisional resin materials such as Crown Tech from Ceramco, Dentka, and Flexura. So like their flexure strength is so much higher than just PMMA acrylic. So if, for example, PMMA acrylic is almost at 50 to 60 megapascal, whereas Ceramco resin material is like 130 megapascal. And I actually tried to print it out, and then I just tested like the flexion strength, and it's pretty strong enough to insert it as a long-term temporary provisional.
Yeah, yes. I think you touched on something interesting there, Arnold. It's actually funny. I had this conversation with a clinician earlier this morning. I think you have to understand the problem you're trying to solve for your patient with a temporary or with an immediate all-on-X. I mean, ultimately, we're just not at the point in terms of resonant technology where it is going to be a permanent restoration. You only see them that one day, and then you just let them go out. It's more so giving them the comfort to have something in their mouth, which is to your point why you were talking about the immediate denture as another part of that workflow. It's just giving them something and very fast for relatively cheap. That is more than capable of handling day-to-day life and has good aesthetics. So I think that's another thing that we tend to get lost in the weeds in, especially with all this new technologies coming out. It's exciting, but it's what problem does this piece of technology or this workflow solve for you and your patient? We have another question asking, if I want to offer same-day all-on-X, what kind of equipment do I need in my office? I guess I'll take a crack at this one, Arnold. To start off with, you would need some sort of scanner to digitize your your impression, whether that's an intraoral, whether that's a tabletop. We personally prefer the Medit series of scanners. They're amazing, super intuitive, great to use. But you'll also need either a way to design or a design partner. If you're looking to do the designing yourself, you can talk to us here at Evident, and we can connect you with an exocad dongle, or you can just send the exocad dongle, or you could just send the scan to us. Something I think a lot of clinicians also overestimate is the time it takes to do an all-in-X case, specifically to design it from scratch. I mean, Arnold, you can probably speak a bit more about this than I can, but you're looking at least 2 hours if you're experienced, right?
Yeah, so this is the issue. So the common problem that we have, which delays the turnaround time, is the like wrong scan file or like misaligned files, right? So please make sure that it has saved with the correct coordination of the scan file. Send us, and then we can just directly proceed to design. And then,
Yeah, that's a
for example, for per arch, we can get back to you less than an hour.
good point.
Yeah.
And if you think about your time as a clinician, that's an hour that you're spending in your office on a computer rather than seeing patients, rather than presenting cases or doing actual treatments. And that's per arch. So aside from the scanner though, and a design partner, if you do want to go through photogrammetry, it's an amazing piece of technology. You just need to make sure that you can justify it from an ROI perspective and that you are actually seeing a lot of implant cases. After that, it's really just a 3D printing setup. So a scanner, a 3D printer, curing machine, and a washing machine. And then of course your long-term provisional resin of choice.
Yep.
Okay, next question. What kind of training would my assistants need for a same-day all-on-X workflow? That's largely dependent on the state that you're in. I know that assistants, especially for our friends in America, they the state it varies on state by state what you're allowed to let your assistants and staff do. So 100% check your local laws first. But I mean, after that, after the 3D printing and nesting, you can pretty much get your staff to run through the entire post-print process. I would say that that shouldn't be an issue. Again, take my words with a grain of salt, and please check your local laws to make sure you're following them to a T. We've got a lot of questions coming in.
Yeah. Wow.
The next one is, what is involved in the post-processing 3D printed temps? Would we need to stain and polish in office? Arnold can speak more to this, but yeah, you would. Sorry, Arnold, you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, so like it really depends on like your in-house setup, right? And also like the perspective of those immediate loading transformation, right? So let's say you have all those materials in equipped units, then you can go ahead like 3D print, and you can even like use a stain kit and polishing kit, right? For example, like say for polishing, it's really it has to be great because for the hygiene purpose, it has to be like nice and smooth, right? For that purpose, then you can get like lathe and pumice. You can set up all like just like a lab. But however, if you're not affordable to have those set up, then what it matter is the 3D printer. So with the 3D printer with the resin, you can go like as thin as possible. For example, you want to print it within 30 minutes or 20 minutes, then you have to go thicker layer, which is like 100 micron or 150 micron. Then, but still, like, you'll see like the steps during those like meshes, right? Then it means you have to polish it. It takes a time. But if you don't have those polishing setup, then just let the printer like print it like slower. But it will give you like much more fine smooth with 50 micron layers, right? But the time of the printing be like maybe more than 40 to 1 hour. Still, like it's a saver if you don't have any like polishing kit, right? So it really depends on how you set up your in-house lab.
Yeah. So I think we had a webinar with Dr. Miguel Casanas a while ago, and he kind of went through his workflow. Also, if you're not on it already, Dr. Rick Ferguson's Dental 3D Printing Group is an amazing resource. There's just a wealth of knowledge there, and it's a great community, super open, super friendly. And if you have any other questions, you can always contact us here at Evident about the post 3D printing process, and we'll help you out, and we'll get that workflow set up for you.
Mhm.
Another anonymous attendee has asked, have you heard of iCam 4D from iMetric? What are your thoughts on it versus a scanner like iTero or Medit? I can take a
Yep.
crack at this one. Arnold.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we actually had Horst from iMetric over on our webinar. Oh, this is about the start of the summer, and he's kind of just talking about the technology and what it is for. Um, I think you really have to consider your practice and your patient base first. If you're doing a lot of implants or if you're in a very high-end practice, I think you can justify it, but you have to understand that it is a niche solution for a niche problem. It makes the implant workflow so much easier for sure, but um, it kind of depends on if the juice is worth the squeeze. Now, if you're doing like an implant a day, I would say definitely. But if you're doing, if you're like most clinicians and you're doing like one every month, every other month, I would say you're better off holding, considering other options. Just to be transparent, you're looking at what, about $30,000 to $40,000 per unit. Am I right?
Mhm. Maybe probably more.
Um, yeah, probably more. You know how inflation is going these days. Um, Another anonymous attendee is asking, do the scan files have to be aligned prior to sending to you?
Well, as long as we have a good reference scan files, which is not saved with a correct byte orientation, that's fine. We can manually superimpose it in our CAD software. That's a good point. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, and then we also have an anonymous attendee asking, do we have recorded past webinars available? Yes, we do. We have a repository of all of our webinars on our website, www.evidentdigital.com. Go to the webinar recordings section and then go to the digital dentist series. You can also find our webinars on YouTube. But we've had a lot of amazing speakers, some of the greatest minds in dentistry on there. So I'd highly recommend checking it out. Um, that's just some housekeeping stuff. We have another question.
Yep.
What is a good starter 3D printer slash washing unit slash curing unit? Is it better to buy once, cry once, or upgrade as you get used to the workflow? That's a
So
tough one.
yeah, if you're just a beginner for a printer and you don't want to mess up with those like all those types of parameters and so on, then yeah, you want to have some like AI engineered software too, right? Then I can highly recommend to go for Accurata. So and it comes with a great washing and curing unit as well. And it has like AI engineered nesting software system, which is Alpha 3D. So and also like the time consuming for printing is tremendous. Like I tried all for one arch like horizontal plate, and I saw the printing time. It was like 32 minutes. So which
Yeah.
was really great. And it's open system to all types of resin materials. So it's pretty comparable to all those types of materials in the market. Yeah.
Funny enough, Arnold and I have actually done a webinar previously on comparing the Accurata and frozen scanners. And I use this analogy. A 3D printer is like any mode of transport. Ultimately, it's going to get you from point A to point B. You just want to make sure you follow, again, your local laws. But what matters is how you get there. Like, do you want a sports car where you just plug it and go back and, have a cup of coffee? Or do you want to get into the weeds and, you know, um, like, do you love optimizing and tweaking things? So ultimately it kind of depends on you as a clinician and your staff.
Yeah.
um,
So it really depends, right? So we are going to same destination, same goal, but how would you want to go? Like by riding a bike or getting a car, right?
yeah.
For example, like frozen printer is so popular these days because it's cheaper printer, the cheapest one, and it prints the same result, right? However,
Mhm.
you have to like have like a lot of extra hand maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Whereas
And
Accurata, you can just go bang on, right?
yeah, and, I have a lot of friends who are clinicians and they love that. They love the tinkering aspect of it because they're hobbyists at heart. On the other hand, too, I have a lot of friends who they really just want to plug something and let it run on autopilot. Um, but I think we're kind of deviating from the core topic of All on X's. Akil Alexander, thanks for tuning in. Akil says, who can I talk to about pricing and cases? The best way to get a hold of us is to fill out a form on our website. evidentdigital.com, and we'll put you in contact with one of our digital treatment planning specialists like Arnold. And then we can talk about, first of all, getting to know your practice and your workflow first, because we want to be able to integrate and be a part of your clinic, but also kind of trying to figure out what needs you have, so we can satisfy the needs that you and the problem that you're trying to solve. We have another anonymous attendee asking, can you recommend any other courses for same-day all-on-X workflows and CE credits? That's a tough one. There are tons of amazing courses out there. I know that we recently had one with Dr. Rick Ferguson, if that would be of interest. I know he also offers courses on his own through Implant Educators. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's almost too much to count. If you are interested in learning more about same-day all-on-X courses, shoot me an email at n as in November, Kalaw, Kalaw at evidentlabs.com, and I'll connect you with some courses and instructors. And looks like we have 4 minutes left, so let's try to get through as many questions as possible. We have another anonymous attendee asking, I don't know if you answered this already, but which resins would you recommend for the same-day all-on-X workflow? I think the biggest thing you have to consider is the printer that you have, because certain resins are only validated on certain printers, and although in theory, it will work, I really do not recommend it. You want to stay within the FDA approved workflows. Otherwise you could risk getting in some trouble. But yeah, it kind of, first of all, you have to start with the printer. What printer do you have? And then Arnold, I think, has tested a bunch of resins. Do you want to share some of your experience on?
Yeah, out of the resins, yeah, for now, I can recommend you go for Ceramco Crown Tech resin. So yeah, it's not too strong. Still, like, it's better than. So yeah, I think as a clinician, it's better to break the bridge rather than implant fail, right? So in that case, we use Ceramco contact resin, and also it doesn't really break. So it has like I mentioned, like the flexure strength is much higher than just PMMA. So PMMA is 50 megapascal, but Ceramco Crown Tech is almost at 130 megapascal.
Nice. And then we have one more question. Where is Evident located? So Arnold and I are located in our head office in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. We have about 5 locations throughout the world. One, our main center of production being in BGC, Manila. And then we have about 2 satellite locations, and then also an office in Bogota, Colombia. We have another question. What are the biggest mistakes you see clinicians make with their all-on-X workflows?
So these are things. So clinicians, they're pretty much excited for going for all-on-4 cases, right? On the day of surgery.
Exciting stuff, right?
And because they're too excited, then they forgot to capture the bite record, and we don't have any bite reference points, right?
Yeah.
Then patient has to be staged, even though like the bone condition is really good, and then like they have to go back to conventional way, like they have to fabricate like a wax rim to get all those smile line and videos and so on, and they have to scan those wax rim 360 degrees and then send us all those information again, and then we can design the temporary of all-on-4. So do not be too much excited, but also make sure you take the bite record during the preliminary appointment or day of surgery.
I get it. I mean, like all-on-X is, especially being able to do it in the same day, it's really exciting. So it's just, making sure you go through that template and capture everything you need to and relay all the appropriate information. And I think we have room for one final question, and then we'll wrap things up. But an anonymous attendee is asking, which scan bodies for MUAs do you recommend?
Oh, yes. So for all-on-4, I forgot this to share as a tip. So like these days the scan bars they're implementing as well, because they figured out that it has to be really accurate, right? So for example, there are sharp edges on the scan bars, and then if you scan with an internal scanner, sometimes we have like lack of capability to capture all those sharp edges. And then in their CAD software, when you transfer it, we have some like maybe like micromillimeter misfit. So that affects the patient's hygiene maintenance, right? So for that purpose, some companies they made their scan body shape as like smooth, right? Such as open implants. So like I love open implant scan bodies because they're open implant scan bodies. They have smooth surfaces and like kind of triangular landmarks. So like for us to have like best fit matching as well. So yeah, a lot of dentists who doesn't use photogrammetry but use intraoral scanner, they use open implant system lineup.
Yeah. Um, and I guess one more thing I wanted to touch on is your workflow will be entirely dependent on your, we kind of went off on a tangent and started answering all these questions. But another thing I wanted to mention is your workflow will be entirely dependent on your patient situation and overall health factors outside of your control. Um, so I guess in conclusion, Arnold, do you have any closing remarks for the audience?
Yeah, so I think I pretty much shared everything here. But however, it really depends on like how like you're gonna prepare your treatment plan and your practice setup and so on, right? So if you have any question further, then yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I have my direct line at 236-260-1158. I don't know if I can share this information, but yeah, that's my personal direct line. So you can feel free to shoot me a text or call me. I can help you however I can.
Yeah, and before I kind of dive into some final stats about you know, how much dentistry is going to grow and why this workflow is important, I just want to run a quick poll. If you're interested in evident design services, please hit yes. If you want a Meta intraoral scanner, we're having an amazing deal right now. I'd recommend checking it out. Or if you're interested in getting an exocad dongle, please check the appropriate response and a member of our team will contact you. But all in all, I think this workflow will save you thousands of dollars in chair time, especially as the demand for All-in-X continues to grow. For example, according to Business Wire, there's going to be an estimated 200 million edentulous or partially edentulous patients in the continental US within the next 15 years. So there's plenty of teeth for everyone. What matters is how you will see more patients and consistently deliver a stellar experience. Now, again, I want to reiterate, you're not looking to replace, at least with same day on X right now, you're not looking to replace porcelain or zirconia and Emax. You're looking to get the patient the best possible product in the shortest amount of time. And then after that, you know, you would coordinate with us and then, you know, or your lab or whoever to get a more permanent restoration. So it's essentially a long-term temporary provisional. And then finally, I'm very confident that if you can turn around an All-in-X case in like one sitting, you will wow your patients and you know, amaze them with your patient experience. So I think as the demand for as we get more and more of that 200 million of those 200 million edentulous patients, this workflow will become more and more common, and the industry, everyone in the industry benefits from it. With that being said, guys, I know we went over a bit. Appreciate you staying with us. If you have any questions, I'd highly recommend reaching out to us or checking out our website at www.evidentdigital.com. You can also reach out to me or Arnold, and we'll put you in contact with the right person. That being said, guys, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day and a wonderful weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Take it easy.